Violet Markey and Theodore Finch's lives collided in a way neither of them had ever expected. It was the kind of encounter that most people wouldn't notice, two teens who seemed to be nothing alike. But for Violet and Finch, that moment would change everything. Violet had been quiet for a while. Ever since the death of her older sister, her life had seemed like it had lost its color. Her sister's death in a car accident had left her in a place where she couldn't move forward. Violet's grief was deep. She still wore her sorrow like a heavy coat, never letting go of the past. It was as though the world had stopped for her, and she couldn't bring herself to move on. Every time she tried, something held her back, making it feel impossible. Finch, on the other hand, was known for his oddities. At school, he was a bit of a mystery. No one really understood him, and he didn't seem to care. Finch didn't fit in with the crowd. He had his own way of doing things, his own style, and he had an odd tendency to disappear sometimes. Everyone knew that Finch was a little different, but no one knew the real reason why. It wasn't because he wanted to be different, it was because he was hiding something much deeper, something he didn't want anyone to know. Finch had been struggling with his mental health for years. His mind was a constant battlefield. He tried to cover it up with jokes, with his quirks, but inside, he was battling demons that no one could see. The two met in an unexpected place, on the edge of a high school bell tower. Violet had climbed up there, alone, to escape the pain she felt every day. She wanted to end it all. She felt as though the world had no place for her anymore, not without her sister. But then, just when she was about to make that final leap, a voice called out to her. It was Finch. He appeared out of nowhere, standing there with an air of confidence that seemed to disguise the inner storm he himself was going through. At first, Violet didn't know what to make of him. She couldn't understand why he was there. Was he going to stop her? Was he going to judge her? She felt lost in her thoughts, and his sudden presence made everything feel strange. But Finch didn't judge her. He didn't tell her to stop. Instead, he just asked her why she was there. He was the first person who didn't see her as just the sad girl. He saw her for what she was, a person in pain, someone struggling to breathe. And in that moment, Violet realized something important. Finch was struggling too. It wasn't just her. He was there because he understood what it felt like to be on the edge, feeling like the world was too much to bear. Finch spoke to her, not with sympathy, but with understanding. He didn't say anything to change her mind immediately, but he stayed with her, talking about everything and nothing at all. The two of them stood there together, letting time pass in silence, and for the first time in a long while, Violet felt like someone cared. What started as a shared moment of darkness turned into something more. The connection they had on that bell tower wasn't just a fleeting thing. It lingered with them both. Violet didn't want to admit it, but something inside her felt lighter. She had been so wrapped up in her grief, so focused on the pain that she had forgotten how to live. But Finch reminded her that there was a world outside of that pain. And as much as she tried to push him away, Finch seemed to be determined to keep her in his life. Their relationship began to grow from that point on. Finch, the boy with the strange habits and unpredictable moods, made Violet see things differently. They were assigned a school project together, and it seemed like fate had pushed them to work on something that would bind them even closer. Their project was to explore the state of Indiana, visiting places that were meaningful and beautiful. It was a chance for them to experience life through the lens of a shared adventure. But as they journeyed together, it became clear that their project wasn't just about visiting physical places. It was about exploring the emotional landscapes they both had been avoiding. Violet was initially hesitant. She didn't want to do this. She didn't want to let anyone in. But Finch's energy was contagious. He pulled her out of her shell, encouraged her to be brave, and to see the world in a way she had never considered. It wasn't about the places they visited. It was about the stories they told each other, the small moments that made everything feel alive again. They went to unusual places, places like the wishing bridge, where people would write their wishes and throw them into the water. Finch encouraged Violet to make a wish, and for the first time in a long while, she let herself hope again. She wished for peace, for a way to heal from her sister's death. And as she did, she realized something important. She wasn't alone in her pain. Finch had his own struggles, his own dark places, and he had been living with them for so long that it was starting to feel like they would swallow him whole. Violet began to see through Finch's facade. She saw past his jokes and his wild energy to the fragile person underneath. She learned about his family, his difficult relationship with his father, his isolation, and the quiet battles he fought every day. But as much as Violet wanted to help him, she didn't know how. She didn't know how to reach him. Finch had a way of hiding his true emotions, of keeping people at arm's length. He pushed Violet away at times, but she kept coming back. She couldn't explain why, but something about Finch called to her heart. As their relationship grew, Violet realized that she had been running from her own grief for far too long. She had been afraid to feel anything. She had tried to shut everything out because it hurt too much. But Finch showed her that it was okay to feel, even the dark things. He taught her that healing wasn't something that happened overnight. It was a process, a slow, messy process, but it was worth it. And in the process, Violet began to heal. She started to smile again, to find joy in small things. She began to live, to let herself be part of the world once more. But just as Violet was starting to come to terms with her grief, Finch's struggles deepened. He began to spiral. The weight of everything he had been carrying for so long started to crush him. He withdrew into himself, pushing everyone away, even Violet. She didn't know how to help him, and it broke her heart. She had grown so close to him, and yet she felt powerless to save him from the darkness inside of him. Finch's mental health continued to deteriorate. He would disappear for days at a time, and when he came back, he would be distant, unreachable. Violet tried everything to bring him back, but nothing seemed to work. She felt like she was losing him, and it terrified her. She had come so far, learned to love him, and now she was afraid that Finch's inner demons would take him away forever. In the end, it wasn't enough. Finch's pain became too much to bear, and he made the tragic decision to take his own life. Violet was left heartbroken, devastated by the loss of the one person who had made her feel truly alive again. She was consumed by guilt, wondering if there had been something she could have done to save him, something she had missed. The grief was unbearable, and she didn't know how to move on without him. But as she struggled to process her grief, Violet realized something important. Finch had given her a gift, the gift of living, of experiencing the world and the beauty within it, even in the midst of darkness. He had shown her that even when life feels impossible, there are still moments of light, moments of love, and moments of connection. Violet learned to honor Finch's memory by living the way he had wanted her to live, not by hiding from the pain, but by embracing it, by finding the brightness in every moment, no matter how small. The story of Violet and Finch is one of love and loss, of two souls who found each other in the midst of their darkest times. It's a story that reminds us all that we are never truly alone, even when it feels like we are. That sometimes the most unexpected people can change our lives in ways we never imagined, and that even in the darkest moments, there are always bright places to be found.